what strategies are being deployed in this war? So many things happening today. Well, joining us is Ambassador Roy Okediebie, security analyst. He's a member of security professional bodies with over 26 years military special forces. Is retired with graduate experience, fellow of the International Institute of Professional Security. He's also a certified protection officer, USA, a chartered mediator, conciliator, member of the International Facility Managers Association. Ambassador, thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much. It is always a pleasure.
First, what's your reaction to the evacuation of Ukrainian fighters from the Azovstal steelworks in Mariupol, which is the latest happening from yesterday up to this morning? Ukraine's defense ministry says over 200 fighters left there, and they were taken to areas held by Russian-backed rebels. Many have wondered, I mean, this is still a war. Is it safe for them to go to places held by Russian-backed rebels?
Well, you know, the position of the world towards the Ukraine war with Russia is of sympathy. Everybody has come out to quickly condemn the actions of Russia. And if you take the statistics of those that are for or against, you will see that Ukraine has a lot of global sympathy. Now, any form of strategy that is being deployed right now, the proper perspective cannot be adequately explored because there is a lot of propaganda news. Even in Nigeria, you can also see that in any small violence that crops up. So the UK, the US, they are building up propaganda news, propaganda war. The Russians are building up propaganda news, propaganda war. So all we know right now is that the strategies being deployed in Ukraine is to create more sympathy and to garner more sympathy from global interest groups, especially those that are members of NATO that are trying to prove a point to show that the aggressor is a villain.
And do you think this is working in whose favor now? Ukraine's favor? Are they winning the war, or against Russia?
Well, with the recent activities in Sweden, you begin to understand that it's moving towards Ukraine's favor. And globally, other countries have started to contribute finance, started to contribute fighters. You know, there was a call for military veterans in Nigeria that wanted to fight in Ukraine. And a lot of people volunteered, you know, and later the government came to speak against it, that they are not in favor of volunteering to go to war, that it becomes a mercenary action. So you can see that Ukraine has been able to gain a lot of favor from the global perspective. And if I will agree with myself, I will see that so far it has worked for the favor of Ukraine, because if other countries that are not members of NATO and want to belong to NATO to protect themselves, they have seen the disadvantages as perceived. And it's going to give them a lot of stress to fight all of the other nations all together as one.
Well, we hear today Western military sources saying that President Putin is now directly involved in the day-to-day running of the war, taking decisions, you know, normally made by junior officers. What do you make of this? Does he have a personal interest, or is this perhaps just evidence that Moscow's campaign is perhaps not going according to plan?
For Putin's activities in this crisis, I would like to say it's going to be a disadvantage to Russia, because, you know, if you look back, Putin has been penciled out as one of the most richest leaders in the world, you know, and holding such resources, he must have bought into personal interest that he wants to protect. My take on that. And also, I begin to see that his earlier activities was not in direct conflict, but in intelligence gathering and espionage. So if it's time for conflict, he will need the trust and the confidence of the generals and the troops to actually go out and motivate others to fight. So if you look at Putin's activities, you will see a lot of personal interest protection and other business angles that we have not been able to see ordinarily will be playing out for putting that pressure on him to squash Ukraine and make a name concerning it.
Let's look at what we've seen in the last couple of hours, shelling ongoing with missile strikes in Sumy, Lviv. But Russia says Ukraine shelled Donetsk residential areas. This is from the Russian-backed administration of the so-called Donetsk Republic. They said that Ukrainian troops twice shelled a residential area in the district. But the Kremlin has maintained that, it was never in the plan, and this is its plan to attack civilians. He said they keep maintaining that civilians were never attacked and that civilians are not dying in the hands of Russian soldiers. Who's telling the truth in these kinds of circumstances?
Well, that's part of the campaign I told you about on the media, that you'll be getting different kinds of reports. Now, if you look at Ukraine itself, during the onset of this war, the Ukrainians have disabled most of their GPS, and the Russians don't have the total cooperation of their intel. So it's difficult to know where there are civilians right now and where there are fighting troops, because people have taken refuge to hide from the onslaught of the military and to be in safe zones. So if they are saying they are not attacking civilians, I've seen videos of such stories being portrayed, and I'm sure the International Criminal Law and the War Crimes Committee of the UN, they will be taking notes to actually be able to provide a judicial process after the war. But I'm sure that with the kind of equipment that are being deployed, the Russians would have opportunity to attack where civilians actually hide from the war.
Indeed, very interesting. A final question to you, briefly, if you can answer that. Who do you think is winning the war as it stands now?
I didn't get that, please.
Who would you say is winning the war?
Well, the war is not the battle. As per my experience contains, the war is a continuum. And you know that the whole countries around Russia seem not to be in full favor except by coercion. And if you look at the financial war that is going on, if you look at the economic war that is going on concerning this Ukraine and Russia conflict, you will see that so many businessmen in Russia have been affected. The economy has been affected, though we have some other countries that are saying they want to buy Russian oil. But I think that is because they can trade it at a lower rate. But truly, I think Ukraine is at the forefront.
We appreciate your time, Ambassador Roy Okedie, security analyst, member of security professional bodies. Thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.